This week's Parsha speaks about sacrifices and all different types of sacrifice. Sacrifices that's a burnt offering, which is a donation, a peace offering, which is 3 types, goats, cattle, and sheep, meal offering, which is 5 types, raw dough, fried dough, and cooked in deep fry, wafers and bread, and it speaks about libations and so on. However, the Torah says an interesting thing, that any offering, whether it's a bird, whether it's flour, whether it's oil, whether it's wine, whether it's meat, whatever it is, there's one thing, one ingredient that you must have on that offering, or else the offering is disqualified. What is that? V'lo yisashbis melach bris elokecha me'al korbanecha. Do not have salt on the sacrifices for Hashem. Salt is an ingredient, as we learned yesterday, 3 times in the same verse. The Torah emphasizes the importance of having salt on the sacrifice. And the question is, what is important? The salt. Who eats the sacrifices? The altar. God. What does God need it to be salted for? And what do you put it on? The fats? Salt on the fats? Salt on flour and oil? What's the point? What do we gain from having salt? What is the purpose of salt that the Torah says 3 times? Put salt, don't not have salt. It has to be, what's the point? So salt is interesting as salt. Salt itself is not something that has a taste. People don't eat salt plain salt. It's not something you eat. As the story in Talmud, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi once asked a student to prepare him food for his journey. He was going to go on a 2-week journey that will never spoil, and it'll be a little, will last for a long time. So he gave him a box of salt. Salt doesn't spoil. And how much does a person eat of salt? A little. And that's what he gave him for his food for the journey. So the salt itself doesn't have a taste. However, hamelech atzma ein bo tam, aval afal became boiled tam ba'basa. Even though salt itself doesn't have a taste, but putting salt in the meat gives it a taste. So in other words, what salt does is that salt itself is not something you eat, but it makes everything else tasty. So it itself is not tasty, but the salt makes everything else taste good. Enhances the taste and the geschmack of the food. The same thing spiritually. There's 2 parts of Torah. There's the meat of the Torah, and there's the salt of the Torah. The meat of the Torah is learning all the laws of the Torah, knowing all the ins and outs, what Torah says. However, that is called plain meat without a taste. It's missing the geschmack. It's missing the taste. You need a salt of the Torah. What's the salt of the Torah? The salt of the Torah is called the inner essence of the Torah, which is Chasidus. Kabbalah, what does it do? To learn Chasidus alone is no good, because it's like eating plain salt. You need to have the Torah. You have to learn Talmud. You have to learn the law. You need the meat. But to have meat without salt, patnish kein tam. So what does Hashem want you? To take some salt, some of the Tanya and some of the Chassidus you learn, and mix it on your Torah, so then the Torah will be with a taste. So when you learn a piece of Chumash, but you have Tanya with the Chumash has a different flavor. It's a flavor of, it's called God-fearing Chumash. Because without learning the Chassidus and the inner essence of the Torah, you're missing the God-fearing element. As the Torah says, why was the first temple destroyed? The second temple destroyed. They learned a lot of Torah, but they forgot who gave the Torah. They forgot that this was God's Torah. They forgot that this is a Torah that each word of it is from Hashem. So if you learn Torah without the salt, without Chassidus, without the inner essence of the Torah, without learning that, so you're going to have a plain piece of meat without a taste. As be disgusting. So you salt it. and you add the spice of Chassidus into the Torah, so now it gives it a flavor, it gives it a geschmack, it gives it a taste, and when it has a geschmack and a taste, then when you learn Chumash after learning Tanya, and you learn Talmud after learning Chassidus and Kabbalah, then the Talmud has a different flavor. Then when you learn Rashi, it's not Rashi thought of something. When you learn Rashi, you know it's God's words through Rashi. And if I have a problem with Rashi, it's not Rashi's problem, it's my problem. That I don't understand the comprehension of the depths of Rashi. If I learn Rambam, and Rambam doesn't make sense, it's not Rambam doesn't make sense. I don't have sense to understand the Rambam. I need to break my head on it, because this is God's words. So it's a famous story in Talmud, that someone asked someone to bring him a core. A core is like 100 pounds of grain. So the guy brought the grain. He says, did you bring also kaf chumtim? He says, what's kaf chumtim? He says, in order for the grain not to spoil, you need to have some dirt, the dirt that it comes from, the dirt that they put into the grain, so it keeps it from spoiling. That's how they preserve it. Before they grind it, just to have grain in a storage house plain, it's going to spoil. By putting the sand and the dirt in it, it absorbs it, it preserves it from becoming spoiled. So he says, you're giving me 100 things of grain without the ingredient that it shouldn't spoil. What's worth this 100 pounds of grain without the dirt, the earth? The same thing if you learn Torah without God fearing and without knowing it's God's Torah, what is the Torah worth? It's going to spoil. So that is the salt that you need to put onto the meat. So therefore you need both. You need the meat of the Torah, which is learning Talmud, Halacha, and Law, and you need the salt. May Hashem help that we have enough meat and don't oversalt it, but put enough salt to enhance the Torah, and through that you'll be able to learn Torah with a geschmack, with a love, with a desire, with a whole enthusiasm, and through that we'll have the ultimate redemption of Mashiach coming.
Amen.